All right, good afternoon, everybody. Like Robin said, I'm Candy Welch, and I'm pleased to be moderating this panel made up of MSA patients and their caregivers. We thank all of you so much for making the effort to be here today, whether it's virtually or in person. For those of you who did make the trip here, I know from experience how hard it can be to get out of the house while dealing with MSA for both the patient and their caregivers. I cared for my husband, Bob, who passed away in 2008. His MSA diagnosis was confirmed following his brain donation. I'm currently on the Brain Support Network board and serve as a leader of our local MSA caregiver support group. Now I'd like to introduce our panel, our MSA patients, Noelle and Saurabh, our active caregivers, Kaly and Steve, and our former caregiver, Michelle. So let's get going with some questions here. So Noelle, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us what your first symptoms were? How did you know you were starting to get sick?
My first symptom was a tremor that I ignored. I could feel this when my head against my face, I would feel a tremor, and I ignored it for months. I also had a hard time getting out of my car. That was the first thing I noticed. I was getting out of my car. Getting out of chairs eventually, but getting out of my car was one of the first things too.
Okay, so like you couldn't turn, or you just couldn't get the foot out, or what?
It was just difficult to get up. It was just difficult to get up out of my car.
Yeah. Okay. And Saurabh, what about you?
Well, mine was interesting at a bocce ball game, and where you're trying to measure the distance to the balloon, and you try a tandem walk to measure the distance between the two balls. And I thought I was having an unusually hard time doing the tandem walk.
Well, it doesn't do much for your game, does
it? But at least I was close enough to need a measurement.
Yeah. And so Kaly, we'll move on to you. Your brother Kevin is who you're caregiving for, right? And what were his first symptoms, and how did he know things were going on?
We first noticed his walk. It was. Oh,
you got it on.
There we go. We first noticed that his walk was changing, so his gait was getting much smaller, and he would actually start. He was falling more often and losing his balance. And so we went to see a neurologist at that point, and they diagnosed him with Parkinson's. But a couple years later, or a year later, he was diagnosed with MSA.
Okay. And what changed that diagnosis? I mean, what happened that they decided to change that?
I think his falling became more frequent, and he was not responding well to the Cinemet. And I think he was getting just declining a lot faster than what the doctor would normally see in a Parkinson's patient.
Right. Okay. And where were you going? You're
Kaiser.
Okay.
Initially Fremont, and then we transferred to San Leandro.
Okay. And now, Steve, where was your Rachel diagnosed, and what were her symptoms?
At first, he drink out in the nighttime. So we have not about too much knowledge about that. But the one thing make me wonder something wrong. We go to ski, he forget how to ski. Why? It's muscle memory, right? So when you learn to ride bicycle, you never can forget your lifetime. So we went up a ski, we try to come down together. Normally we do this, but somehow he lost balance. He take long time to get down. So I was wondering something wrong. And then he was do modeling, and he feel have hard time to do some, position, and he tried to do, go to gym, do exercise, but something wrong. And then we start to see neurology, and then probably take a half year, and then the diagnosis.
Okay. And was her original diagnosis then MSA, or did they think it was something else before?
Just MSA-C.
Okay.
Yeah, we in Stanford here.
Okay.
So we see different hospital, UCSF, Stanford, and Mayo Clinic. And then later on, we transfer everything, go to Stanford system here.
Okay. And Michelle, how quickly did Brian get diagnosed when he was getting sick? How long did that take?
He was diagnosed with possible MSA-C in August of 2014, and he went and saw his primary care physician in July. And at that time, they wanted to rule out a brain tumor, and that was ruled out. So then he was referred to the neurologist, and then he was diagnosed with a possible MSA-C.
Wow, so you
So
guys
it's pretty
both-
quick.
Pretty quick, yeah, that's good. So Noelle, what is your most troubling system or symptom, I should say now? What bothers you the most?
That's a good question. Well, I do a therapy. I do a balance. It's called balanced motions. And getting off the floor sometimes it's getting harder and harder. I also do rock steady boxing, and we have to do some floor exercises. And getting off the ground is getting harder. But I keep getting new ideas on how to work with that. But that's one of the challenges I have right now. And it's just to see the progression. But the exercise, I want to say how much that's helped me tremendously. The exercise is everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later too. Let's see, and Saurabh, you had to retire, I understand.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah, yeah.
recently.
So, and how did you know when that was time for you to make that change?
It's a progressive decision. I mean, you get less and less respirative after as time goes by. And now it's got to a point where all the accommodations like working at home and whatnot, but it's very hard to look down at the keyboard and look up at the monitor for even a few minutes. So then it's kind of unfair for the team also to continue. So we come to decision to move forward with the ending it.
Okay, so Kaly, are you involved in any support groups, and can you tell us a little bit about that?
I am. I belong to this one, the Brain Network support group, and also there is one in, well, it's the Tri-City area, and we meet on Mondays, and we have a Zoom call, and twice a month. That's been so helpful because initially, both my brother and I did not know how to deal with this condition. And it's been a learning process. And I think through the support group, it's not only learning the experiences from other people, but just getting the emotional support. And there's a lot of wisdom in the support groups.
Yeah, so you feel it's been beneficial then
Yes.
for you? Yeah,
Yes.
great. And Steve, can you tell us a little bit about how your living situation changed with Rachel's progression of her disease?
Okay, so after Rachel get diagnosed with MSA-C, so well, he needs someone to take care of her, right? So I decided to quit my job and basically, I dedicate the operation to the other people. I become full-time, caregiver for her, and this is a lot of learning when it's a new role, right? So. For my understanding, I get knowledge from doctor. I see different doctor, sleeping doctor, a neurology doctor, and a different kind of doctor, and the ENT doctor, and they give us a lot of knowledge. And also, you can Google MSA, right? So a lot of research paper there, and also right now, a lot of hands-on experience, and they have MSA group in the Facebook. So every time you have the problem and question you saw there, they're very helpful. And even you go through this message there, so people discuss how situation it is. MSA is different from people to people, right? And but they have so many people there. They have so many things in common, right? So you need to understand this and the situation. So this is what I get my knowledge and feel how things going. This how things going so far, right? So Rachel have been diagnosed almost 6 years. It's 2018, I get diagnosed in movement disorder group here.
But did you move though? Did you guys relocate to a one-story house? Did you tell me or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we used living from West San Jose, Cupertino area, and right now we moved. We have 2-floor house, and but as it get progress, it's hard for her to climb to the upstairs, right? So we moved to get close to my daughter, and right now we living just cross the bridge, 84 in Union City. So we got the smaller and the one flat house is just after Rachel get diagnosis. It's easier to get to Stanford. And
Right. Yeah. Okay, Michelle, can you tell us about your experience with palliative care? What was your experience with that, obviously, and was it beneficial? Would you recommend it for others?
I would highly recommend palliative care services if you haven't already looked into it. And I know there's a session right afterwards, so I would say stay for that. They helped us navigate the MSA journey with a lot of compassion. They help you define what your wishes are and achieve those wishes. And my husband, Brian, was a Kaiser member. So I'll talk about our experience with Kaiser specifically. Kaiser has 3 teams in palliative care. They have their outpatient team, their hospital inpatient team, and their continuing care team that services the skilled nursing facilities or SNFs that are within Kaiser's network. And so I'll just kind of talk about our experiences with each. We first had the experience with the outpatient palliative care team upon Brian's diagnosis. After he was diagnosed with probable MSA at the end of 2015, we met with the outpatient palliative care team to learn about their services. And then immediately after that, Brian updated his advanced healthcare directive. And then in 2022, following his hospitalization, we met with the outpatient team to talk about long-term care placement and resources for our kids. Then in 2022, we met for the first time with the inpatient hospital-based staff. We met with the palliative care doctor and nurse. The nurse did this complete assessment around his comfort and any issues and so forth. And as a result of that, he was prescribed medication for constipation, which wasn't something that had come up before. So that was actually a really helpful thing. And we also had the conversation about intubation, feeding tube, catheter, et cetera, so that we could update in an informed way his advanced healthcare directive. We also initiated the conversation about, okay, what next steps do we need to take to get a speech device, and also what resources are available for our children. And then in 2023, he was hospitalized twice. So, or actually 3 times. During those hospitalizations, we met with the inpatient team again. And we again had conversations about resources for our kids at this stage of things, legacy conversations, board and care placement, the hospice decision, and they also helped me get the MRI images for the brain donation. So that was the hospital team. And then we also met with Kaiser's child life specialist, part of the palliative care team. She met with our children virtually, talked with me afterwards after her assessment, and then she and I had phone conversations and email about resources during about a year's time. And then the Kaiser's palliative care team outpatient also has an after-hours call center, which is awesome. They give you a little magnet, you put it on, we had it on our microwave. And so I called them and described Brian's symptoms and asked for next steps. And in one call with a nurse and a doctor on the same call, and any of you who are Kaiser members know that's not typical, I got guided instructions on what to do next, which was extremely helpful. And we executed on those. And then lastly, my husband was in a skilled nursing facility at the end. And while he was there, we talked to the palliative care doctor numerous times about end of life topics. So again, I highly recommend, if you're not already talking with folks in palliative care, start those conversations now.
Yeah, great advice. Yeah, I really agree. So, Noelle, back to you. What's your living situation now, and how do you expect it to change? What are you going to be doing moving forward?
I also just stopped working as well. I've been on disability for a year, but I'm now on long-term disability. I live on a 2,000 square foot house, a farmhouse where I've been for 14 years, and I'm going to have to move. I'm going to have to get. I'm looking for a assisted living or a senior facility. I'm looking at that right now.
And what kind of support do you have? I mean,
I have mostly friends, I have
Yeah.
a circle support of friends, and it's some family, but most of my family are father. I do have a brother in Salinas who's a doctor. He's supportive, but he's very busy as well. So I am looking at my next living situation.
okay. And Saurabh, I know you've been traveling and have a big trip coming up in June. Can you talk a little bit about your travel experience with the walker, and
Right.
would you recommend people going for it and just going on trips?
Yeah, it's actually been relatively easy to travel in this condition because the airports are very well set up to take you to the plane. I mean, you can choose a seat that's closer to the bathroom, and so you don't have to walk as much to it. And most places are very friendly in terms of accommodating you or things like this. So with a little bit of planning, and at the destination too, you have Ubers to get everywhere. So if you just pack your walker with you for the room, then it's kind of very manageable.
So, and you talked about breaking it up too. We mentioned that, like for longer trips, like if you can stop.
Yeah, that's right. Instead of, normally when you're healthy, you want to take the one possible flight that's available. Like let's say you're flying to India, we used to look for the one non-stop flight, even if it's 16 or 17 hours. But now we'll instead take a flight to where the overall flight time is maybe 30 plus hours, but each one is 2 flights through Japan, so it's only 7 hours and 7 hours with an overnight stay in between. So maybe breaking up a long flight and maybe even taking the time to visit the spot in between gives makes it, just slow yourself down a little bit, makes a big difference.
Good advice. So Kaly, can you tell me a little bit how your family has been a support to you? I know you said your hubby's been really
Yes,
great.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother lives with us, us being my husband and my adult daughter. And my husband has been, I guess I could call him an angel because he helps a lot. When my brother falls, I can't pick him up, so my husband's there, and he's always there giving a hand, as well as my daughter, who is familiar with my brother's physical therapy exercises. And so oftentimes my brother does not listen to me when I encourage him to do the exercises, but he does listen to my daughter. So that kind of works out well. But they've been a support. And my sister tries to support as well. She has her hands full with her son. But yeah, so we have that family. We have a small family, but they are totally supportive.
That's great. So, and Steve, have you and Rachel considered brain donation? What are your feelings on that?
Actually, Rachel decided to donate brain, but we haven't done this part yet. So probably we need to talk to someone, maybe talk to Rachel's primary care doctor or neurology doctor to do that. So Rachel just tell me, okay, he wants to donate the brain. Yeah. So yeah, this decision was made, but we didn't take action yet. Okay.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Well, good. So, Michelle, I know that you and towards the end of Brian's disease, you moved him into a skilled nursing facility. How did you know it was time, and how was that emotionally for you and him as well?
He was in a skilled nursing facility the last 3 months of his life. He actually died there, and I'm grateful that his end of life wishes were met while he was there. And I'm just going to kind of walk through how we got to that place, because there's never a straight path with MSA. At least that was our experience. He was first hospitalized in April of 2022, and that's when we started talking about long-term placement. He had had aspiration pneumonia, and we decided at that time that we would go the board and care route would be best for our family when we deemed it was time. Just so everyone knows, at this point in 2022, our kids were 10 years old. We have twins. So then that, jump started me into really researching board and cares and skilled nursing facilities, talked to different social workers, got very familiar with the California Advocates of Nursing Home Reforms website, watched a lot of videos, webinars, read stuff. And then from getting Brian's input and everything I looked at, I created a screening questionnaire that I would use when the time came to actually, go into her board and care homes and make that decision. So over a year went by, and now we're in May of 2023. And I was feeling like it was time for board and care. I was burned out. Brian's medical needs were increasing. And then ironically, around the same time, Brian actually shared with his home health physical therapist that he was feeling like he was a burden at home. And this was the first time, to my knowledge, that he had ever shared that with anyone. And then about a week before his June 2023 hospitalization, I thought I had a pinched nerve. I had like shooting pain going down my arm, sharp pains in my back. I reached out to my doctor. During one of his physical therapy sessions at home, I was sitting there on the chair with a heating pad on. Physical therapist, as he was walking out, was like, what's up? And told him what I was experiencing. I'm pretty sure I have a pinched nerve. And he had me do a couple of things. He's like, I think it's stress. And I was like, okay. And then the following week, Brian was hospitalized. And miraculously, my symptoms subsided and my x-ray was normal. So I knew it was time then with his hospitalization. So in this case, also it was time because when he was being discharged, he was going to need oxygen, and that would involve an oxygen concentrator, which has a whole set of complications. He would need a cough assist device, and he needed skilled rehab right away, because when you're in the hospital, and you heard this the talk earlier about deconditioning, lying in a hospital bed for a week deconditions you very quickly. And so he was very weak, and he needed to get that skilled rehab as soon as possible. And that's what the doctors were advocating for. And he wouldn't be able to get that at home because he would have to start the home health process all over again. And we had experienced that the year prior when he was discharged, and I was like, we can't do that. So he was discharged to a skilled nursing facility. And the plan was that when he was there, I would go start touring board and care homes. And the day that we were to meet with a social worker to start that process, he was hospitalized again. So I didn't do that. And I thought at this point, okay, he's been hospitalized 2 times within a month. Board and care is off the table. Like, this is not even an option for us anymore. But the palliative care social worker we spoke to said, no, there's different tiers. They cost different amounts of money, but it's definitely worth pursuing. So I started the process. I toured a couple places, found one that I met our needs based upon that screening questionnaire that I pulled up that I'd done over a year earlier. And we had an evaluation with the owner of the board and care. And then the following day, I found out he was rejected. He was too weak. He needed to gain his strength, but they wouldn't give us a target for what that meant. So I knew at this point he had to go to a skilled nursing facility. And so that's what we did, but we went to one that was closer to our home. And he went there for the skilled rehab and wound care. And at this time, I activated his Lots of Helping Hands website and put together a calendar for visits. And I uploaded resources on the site, including Brian's in-person visits checklist, companionship and advocacy and caregiving, that had a checklist of what people can do when they came to visit him. And that's what we did. So he was at the skilled nursing facility. He was hospitalized a third time. He was discharged back for rehab and wound care, because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to do the rehab. And boarding care was still on the table, but it would require hospice too. So I researched hospice in a boarding care environment, talked over my findings with Brian, and we decided it would be best for him at this point to stay at the skilled nursing facility. And he had his last PT session the morning of his last aspiration pneumonia event. And he died there the day before his discharge date. And it was the right decision for his care needs at the time, for my peace of mind, my well-being, and for our family to have quality time together.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Noelle, we got this for you. So you're the co-leader of the local MSA patient group. And can you tell us a little bit about that experience and why you like doing it?
Yeah, it's been very rewarding. We have different people come every time, but they come and they share their experience, strengths, and hope, and it's been very, very good. I've learned a lot, and the support is very powerful. If you're looking for a group, I encourage you to join our group. We meet once a month on Zoom, and yeah, it's been very interesting. We get people from all the levels. We have one gal who has like 14 years of 14 years in MSA. Yeah, she does a lot of therapies every day. She's very involved with her therapies. But yeah, so it gives you hope too. You find strength in numbers and strength in people's experiences. And so I find it very useful, very helpful.
Great. And another question for you, Michelle. Did you and Brian discuss brain donation, right? How did he feel about that?
Yes, we did discuss it. He wanted confirmation of the diagnosis, but he also wanted to further research, because right now the understanding is that MSA is not genetic based, but we have 2 children. And so he wanted to do whatever he could to further the research, and I was completely supportive of that. And he did do the brain donation, and his diagnosis of MSA-C was confirmed.
Okay. Saurabh, this one is for you. This is something that we struggled with, my husband and I. Has it been challenging to tell friends and family about your diagnosis?
Not so much telling them about it, but it's their reaction to it. I mean, myself, I can deal with the diagnosis, but then it affects the people in your life differently, and more so even than yourself. And so my wife and daughter, when they know about my diagnosis, it's a bigger change for them to come to terms with it. Of course, everybody tries to help, and sometimes they recommend anything they might have heard on the internet, and they're just trying to be helpful, but you have to just listen through that and deal with the fact that sometimes the diagnosis might affect your loved ones more than yourself.
Okay, thank you. Steve, and we didn't touch on this, but are you still working? Are you retired? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You did say you retired for, with Rachel's decline. So let's see. One more. Okay. Oops. Okay, so here's one. And Michelle, since you spoke about Kaiser, anybody else wants to chime in on this too. How to find these resources. Our neurologist at Kaiser does not seem to believe in planning ahead. No mention of palliative care or social worker help or anything really. He's very reactive instead of proactive. Wow, that wasn't your experience, huh, Michelle? I mean, and And you have Kaiser
You can get
too.
a referral. I don't even know if you need a referral to palliative care. I'm not sure how we did that, but that you can get that through your primary care. You
Yeah.
don't have to go through your neurologist. The specialists sometimes don't get involved in those things. So I would definitely go through your primary care physician and get hooked up with the outpatient folks. You actually go and you meet their whole team. Their team is a doctor, a nurse, chaplain, and a social worker. And so they kind of give you an overview of what their services are. They talk about the long-term care planning, the different tools to make sure you have in place. And then they're there, through Kaiser's messaging system to email and answer and do phone appointments and video appointments. Yeah, they're a great resource.
So Noelle, how have you found resources via Kaiser? Has
I
it worked
found
for
it
you?
fabulous. I've had great care, very coordinated care at Kaiser. And I have very responsiveness. I mean, you have the speech therapy, OT, PT, all of it coordinated, and it's been superior. I've been very happy, very happy.
And was that through your neurologist, or did you go through,
Dr.
your
Kaly is my
primary.
neurologist, so I had a great doctor. I call it my doctor. She's fabulous.
But did she schedule this stuff for you or give you the referrals?
Yes.
Or your
Yes, she did.
primary?
She did.
Okay. Okay.
She did.
So sounds like somebody needs a new neurologist here with this one question, right? Yeah, second opinion. Yeah.
Opinion, that was a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get
When
a
that-
second opinion.
Oh,
Oh,
wow. So, oh, wow. Well, maybe you guys need to
Let's talk afterwards. Let's hook up.
Yeah, need new names for doctors. So did anyone get second or third opinions? I mean, how
Yes,
many?
I
Okay,
did.
how
I
about
did.
you?
I did.
What'd you-
I talked to Mayo Clinic.
Okay,
At the point, I was going to go out there, but I changed my mind after talking to. I talked to Dr. Han Lee up in San Leandro. He is fabulous, and Dr. Call set it up because I was going to go to Mayo Clinic, but I realized I didn't need to go to Mayo Clinic. And but yeah, I got the care I needed, so I need to go there. Because my case is a little bit, I have MSA-P, MSA-P, and I respond to sentiment, so it's a little bit different. And so there was for a while there was a question: do I have it, or do I have PD, or do I have MSA? And so, but I do have it. But even though sentiment does work, yeah.
right. So Saurabh, you maybe can speak to this. How many years have you had symptoms? How far into it are you?
It'll be 4 years this August. Yeah. It started, 3.5 years ago or so.
Okay, let's see what else we have here. So I'll just ask this as a general question. If anybody has anything to add, I would appreciate it. We know that exercise is key to slowing the progression of these neurological diseases, just like we saw our presenter right before this. Has any of you had experience trying to motivate a loved one that doesn't want to exercise?
That was myself.
Oh, well, you're your loved one, right?
Yeah, exactly. But for me, I had to go to the site. If I stay home to do it, I won't do it. I know, but if I go to the site, I feel that I'm going to do it. So I work out 5 days a week, and the weekend I take a little break. But I find that it's valuable. And so I do boxing twice a week for 90 minutes. And I do this new thing called. It's called balanced motions. It's a neurological workout. It's very powerful. I just started this about 2 months ago, and it's made a big, huge difference for me. So I see the side of it back there.
Oh. Sure, please.
So my husband was an avid cyclist, and so he continued on his own, immediately after he had the diagnosis, getting a recumbent bike and riding his bike and so forth. But in terms of doing the quote prescribed exercises initially that were given to him from the outpatient physical therapist, not so motivated to do it. But he was a social person, so taking classes was huge. And then when COVID happened and things moved to virtual, it actually was a benefit for us because later when he couldn't physically go to the in-person classes, he was able to continue with the virtual classes. And so he took advantage of classes at a local community college, the adaptive fitness classes, and also with Skills Plus, which is a program in Santa Clara, and they're group-based. They had groups, speech therapy, group mobility classes, and those were huge because it was not only the exercise part, but it was the social connection, and also with the speech therapy, a place to talk with others. And that was motivating in itself. And knowing that, okay, at X time, I have this class, and there's kind of a sense of accountability because these classes aren't very big. So the instructors know them and they'll follow up when you don't show up. So that's actually a really good thing.
Yeah, that's very motivating, right? Yes. So have any of you or your loved ones gone to speech therapy, and do you think it's valuable?
I do. I think it's very valuable. In fact, she told me about the Parkinson Voice Project. It's online. I do it every day for 20 minutes, and it starts my day off really good because otherwise I can't talk that well. I have my speech is with one of those symptoms. So I have to say is I'll do a tune-up in the afternoon if I have to go in the afternoon for an evening event. So I recommend it. The Parkinson Voice Project is free. It's online. It's fabulous, and you can't miss it. And the recordings are available on YouTube or on I think on Facebook. But you just go to just type in Parkinson Voice Project. You can't. It's called Speak Out. It's fabulous. I recommend it to everybody.
Okay, and it's free?
Free.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Candy, can I mention something?
Sure,
too?
of course.
My brother went through that, and they're very helpful. He actually had the therapist come to our house, but he didn't continue the exercises. But they gave us a workbook, and they gave us the link for the videos, and it's really helpful. And as far as the other question, like exercises, I've been trying to find different ways of getting him to exercise. So we have found like Tai Chi online or even ballet. We're doing that one, and he enjoys that one. That one's free too. And the other was, I think there are just a couple other videos because he used to go out and join the groups in person, but for some reason has decided not to do that anymore. He'd rather do it at home. So we've been trying to accommodate him, but still get some sort of like exercise in there for him.
So do you think the speech therapy has helped with swallowing problems with him?
It was helping, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
He still has that, but he doesn't do the exercises on a regular basis. But I think also the volume of his speech it had become very, very soft, and we couldn't hear him. So he has to practice that. And I let him just practice in his bedroom, and practice in his bedroom, so he can do the singing and the up the scale. So yeah.
So Steve, has Rachel done any speech therapy or?
Yes, Rachel everything Rachel have done is in Stanford, but something very strange. Rachel lost the voice very early, but his vocal cord is very strong. So we do tests see the ENT doctor every 6 months. So in past several tests, his vocal cord have no change at all, and he can drink, eating by herself, no problem. But he had sometimes right now have hard time to hold the bowl by herself. But swallowing, eating, no problem, and breathing, no problem. But somehow he lost his voice, capability years ago. But his eating, drinking have no problem. So sometimes this go by each other, but somehow there's good news for her, right? So he still can talk, but he cannot generate big voice. Something when Rachel tried to say something, and he cannot control herself. It's laughing. It's MSA symptom, right? He's get laughing, and then he's lost capability of the speak something. But for us, we still can understand each other. So he still can do the typing, and so we are okay now. Yeah.
I interject. I want to say that speech therapy is so important for swallowing. It's vital. The speech therapy helps it with the swallowing. If you have a swallowing problem, do your speech therapy. I just want to say that.
Michelle.
that as well. When Brian was still doing outpatient speech therapy, doing the exercises on his own was like just not happening. And the doctor, the speech therapist said, you know, the best thing would be for him to join groups because he wasn't talking, because it was, you know, people were having trouble understanding him and stuff. So he just stopped talking. And she said, the only way he's going to be able to retain that function, just like everything else, is he's got to talk. And so that's why it became so critical for him to join different classes. And that way he was forced to talk. And then later when we had home care, part of their shift was to go through the exercises with him as well, so that he was being verbal for as long as he could be verbal. And I firmly believe if he didn't continue doing that, he would have lost his, you know, his ability earlier on, because it's their muscles. And if you don't use those muscles, they atrophy.
Right. Saurabh, are you still social? Do you still see friends from work or neighborhood or?
Yes, very much so. And in fact, the fact that I've been working until now actually forces me to talk more coherently, even on Zoom calls and whatnot. And now that I'm stopping that work, maybe I'll have to pay more attention to therapy and stuff like that. But when it's just me and my wife, I'll speak unintelligibly many times, but I make more of an effort, and that's probably beneficial when you're around friends and family.
And how about Kevin? Does he have friends that come around or see?
He doesn't have a lot of friends per se, but he does have the caregiver that comes in 3 times a week, and that's actually helpful. That's probably one of the best things, because it gives me a break, and then he gets to speak to the caregiver. They talk about many topics, and they laugh, and you know, I think it revitalizes him, because it's probably boring talking to his sister all day. But yeah, that's one of the best things. That's his kind of social time.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much, Candy, Noelle, Saurabh, Kaly, Steve, and Michelle. It was a fantastic panel. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.